Hello, friends. Welcome to Season 7, the recap of Building a Nation, of course, with Treaty United, the stream save. And yeah, if you do enjoy these little recaps, then of course, drop a like. That would be most helpful. Lets me know you want to keep seeing them. There's going to be some additions to this one as well, because there's a few things I feel like I was neglecting in a few of the previous ones, so we're going to focus on some different areas as well today. So look forward to that later. Things like the squad itself, actually talking more about the players we have, rather than just the players we've signed. But yeah, do go over and follow on Twitch. We're actually streaming right now with the brand new transfer window. And I know I said this last year, but this time, believe me, you're not going to want to miss this one. And those of you that may be watching this later in the day, I'll probably be live tonight as well because we're doing the streamer showdown. So okay, come over to that one as well. And if you do want to watch the VODs in full, of course, they can be found on the second channel, link in the description. I also got a TikTok, I probably mentioned it, but there you go. Go follow that as well. There's stuff on there. Let's jump in. I'm going to start by showing you the youth intake. If you could even call it that. It was another year, another round of disappointment. We were promised a golden generation this time, although we were before, admittedly, and we did not get that. Best player in the youth intake was Darren Brown. His actual name is Darren Brown, but come on, you can't miss an opportunity like that. Hopefully he can use a bit of mind control on opposition players. Now, he's not awful, but when you get a golden generation and it comes through and it's once again 1 star, what is the point in the youth predictions? It's just another thing in FM for me that seems to be completely pointless this year. Like, why even bother with a preview then if it's going to be the exact opposite of what they say? I understand that they may not have perfect knowledge, but when it's the exact opposite, what is even the point of it? But nevertheless, Darren Brown was the best player in that youth intake. Now, he's 6'2", has okay physicals in there too. His tackling's pretty solid, good bravery to go along with it, good work rate too. But I just don't think he's ever going to really amount to a great deal, unfortunately. And the thing is, we were promised 3 really good centre-backs in our youth intake with this golden generation. We only actually got 2 centre-backs in the entire youth intake, so I don't know how that's even relevant, but there you go. So that's the situation. Really struggling to bring through our own talent at the moment, though we are continuing to improve our youth recruitment and our junior coaching and our youth facilities. So that is coming along nicely, and hopefully at one point we'll finally get a player that we can call our own, someone that we can bring through into our first team. We did it with Tromsø, and I want to do it here. It's just been really difficult. And the star player from our youth intake last season, I suppose, if you can call it that, was Gary Keane. What is it about every player coming through our youth intake being a 16-year-old centre-back with cornrows? But there you go. He's been on loan at Shelbourne this year, so has actually been playing in the top flight. So I suppose there's that. Top flight football is definitely not going to do him any harm, I suppose. I'm actually amazed that he's managed to play 19 matches in the top flight of Irish football this year. That's pretty good. So moving on to what you all want to see, I'm sure, the signings. And this time there's been ins and outs. Quite a few, in fact. First up was Joseph Elisa. Basically, free transfer, essentially. I think he was from Carno Pillars. We took a risk, didn't have him scouted. Bad choice, but we weren't paying a lot, and he'll be leaving the club as soon as possible. He's even kicked off in a team meeting, hilariously, at one point, when every single player in the club agreed with me, except him. And I'm like, mate, come on. But yeah, not happening for us. We also signed Grace Ualembo, a Dr. Congolese centre-back as well from Créteil. And again, it wasn't the best signing for us, but never mind, because he's going to be joining St. Pat's at the end of the season anyway. So he'll go to another Irish side, and maybe he can do a better job there. These were just kind of a couple of pot shot signings to see what can happen. After that, we went in for the loans. So we got Issa Samadiani, who, of course, we will have for next year as well. He's played a reasonable number of games for us, just covering, had a few injuries during the season. But you recognise the name. He's played for us before, but our relationship with Strasbourg has somewhat broken down. Luckily, we have him for a full another season anyway, so no need to worry. Patrice Reme as well is another of those players that we've got for 2 years from Strasbourg. This year, though, he's been fantastic. You'll see 13 goals and 5 assists. Now, admittedly, 10 of those goals were penalties. This man is a penalty machine. He has not missed a single penalty this season. He's been above and beyond what I expected and has scored a couple of screamers to go with it as well. He's been phenomenal. Weirdly, we just seem to win loads of penalties when he's on the pitch. It's kind of mad, but there you go. So really, really good. I'm pleased with him. Have him for another year. Happy with that. We also had Žarko Mihailovic, a Luxembourger right-sided player. Hasn't played as much, but again, he will be leaving in this window, and I'm not entirely fussed by that because we didn't really need him that much. Now, of course, next year we probably will because Sod's Law and all that, but still. And the last of the loan signings this season that we had from Strasbourg was Cloud Frey, who again, I've been amazed with this year. He's played in a variety of positions and has managed to net 20 goals this season, including 11 in the league, despite only starting 10 games. He's the ultimate super sub, or the ultimate utility player. I wouldn't want to play him consistently in that role because he just doesn't actually... He's good, but he's not as good as some of the other players we've got. And yet he does the job for us, so he's been such a fantastic servant. I don't think we're going to be able to get him back next year, though, unfortunately, because he was one of the 2-year loanees, I think, from before. Or was he? Maybe we just didn't get the 2-year situation in on him, which is a bit of a shame. unless his contract's up or something. Yeah, no, he's got plenty of time there, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. But still, fantastic year for Cloud Frey. Scored one absolutely worldy as well. Both him and Remy have scored some worldies, so really happy to have those guys as well. Oh, and Lewis Hayes was also back for a third season at the club. I'd like to extend his loan once more because he will count as a homegrown player for Europe next year if we can get him back on a third season loan from Manchester United, and I would adore the crap out of that. Heck, according to this, we could even afford to buy him, maybe. You never know. The first new transfer was Matty Pollock. He was released by Watford after quite some time being sort of various places on loan in all of that. And we picked him up 39 appearances for us in total this year across different competitions. And he's been pretty solid. In fact, not only solid, at one point he was one of the highest average rating players in the league. Another player that I wasn't expecting to do as well as they had is Tawanda Mazwanhisa of Leicester City. And now originally he wouldn't join us because he wanted £10,000 a week. Took him back on trial again. After that trial, 1.8k a week. He came around, and boy did he come around for us. 45 appearances this year for Tawanda. This man has been an absolute godsend this season. To get 14 goals as well and 18 assists in that period. I think he's the top scorer, top assister in this team. And as far as I'm aware, he doesn't take set pieces. That's saying something. He's been all over the shop for us this year. Despite that poor finishing to net 14 goals. Really, really happy with that. Now, to our first paid signing of the year. Brooks Lennon from Dundee United for £11,000. A strange one, you might say, given he only has 9 tackling. Now, originally, he was brought in to be a sort of backup right-sided player. Just to give us a bit of depth there. Not on the cheap so much, just because he was a good player and could operate across multiple positions. That was our main thing. Man ended up playing 39 games and got 10 assists this season from right back. I don't think he ever played on right wing. Ended up basically being the right back, starting right back for us for almost the entire season and managed to net 10 assists, which, as you'll know, is a lot for our wing backs. They don't really offer a great deal a lot of the time going forward. Max Johnson's had a few assists, but for Brooks Lennon to get 10 assists and 2 goals this year is stunning. Really, really happy for him, the 30-year-old American. Not the sort of signing I would normally make, but likes big matches, consistency. That stuff does make a difference to us, and it seems to be this year it really does make a difference. We also had Ancor Esteban on loan from Leicester City. I've been referring to him as Leicesterban all season for obvious reasons. Really solid centre-back. Could play midfield too, has done a few times. In fact, I'll have a look at his breakdown of that if you want to see where he's sort of played. So, yeah, 27 games at centre-back, 4 goals from there as well. Has played in midfield a few times as a sort of ball-in midfielder. Hasn't played as well as you'd kind of expect because he's not as fluid in that position, but still. And the next up was another loanee, Kyle McLaughlin, coming on loan from Real Sociedad. Weirdly, as the season wore on, he started to play less and less because for whatever reason, Tawanda was just a god. And I expected that McLaughlin would eventually win that position, and he just never quite did it, incredibly. Only managed 2 goals this season and 4 assists. And the last of the signings that we made in the January transfer window, because there were some in the mid-season, as there often are, is Luis Alberto Narvaez, an Andorran centre-back. 12 caps for Andorra he had. Cost us £325,000. Now, you look at that and go, is he really worth that? I mean, probably. We could probably sell him for more than that, in fact, but that's not the point. At the time, he was worth it to us because he's okay. He's an okay player that can cover games off for us. He's only started 8 games for us this year, but he is only 19, and he was only 18 when we signed him. And that right there is the reason. Because he could be a homegrown player for us in a few seasons. And it was just kind of cool to have an Andorran international, because he's probably the best player Andorra have, and maybe ever have had at this point. And here he is knocking about with us. We've actually not had as many injuries in those areas as we thought we were going to. The injuries have occurred much more disparate positions this season. So I suspect that next year he'll get more game time, and of course homegrown for European games. And that's really where our focus has lied this season. And the last freebie that we picked up in this period, and I'm very pleased with this one, is Carlo Mura. Was released by, I think, Atalanta after a loan spell at Spal, and we picked him up on 1.6k a week. Now, he's not had the best impact so far. He's only just built his way into the team. He does obviously have inconsistency, which is a shame, but he's managed to net 3 assists and grab a goal so far. Hasn't really played a great deal, mostly in the cups with a few games in the league in there too, but he's quick, he's got good crossing, good dribbling. He kind of, other than his long shots, ticks all the boxes and maybe his vision for a right-sided player. So we were happy to do that deal because at the end of the day, we could still make some money off of him later down the line. And I think he's better than that, to be fair, like genuinely very good. And now, on to the final signing that we made. And this is our record signing in the summer. And there's a story here. This is Emmett Doran, an Irish striker who signed from Hearts for £800,000. Comfortably a club record signing for us there. Technically does count as a trained in Ireland player, which is good, despite the fact that he came through at Rochdale and then Hearts. This is his first Irish club, but I like that we get that. I assume it's just because of the nationality. But like, look at his attributes. Dribbling of 14, 15 finishing, 14 composure, good first touch, 6'2", he's quick, he's got good jumping reach. 16 jumping reach is insanity. An absolutely brilliant striker. And we only found out about him because a random news article linked us to him. It said, Treaty linked with move for Emmett Doran. And we were like, who? had never scouted him, and then it just felt like a match made in heaven as we were able to pick him up for transfer listed price of £800,000. And being able to rotate between him and Michael Sharif this season has been a godsend. Gerard Boitel has gone out on loan to Bray Wanderers and has managed to bang, every goal every other game for him. Really good progression, really good news for him to be playing football. That's the key thing. Tyler Morton also left. Wasn't really expecting much from that. He never actually made a senior appearance for us, but we got him on a free, sold him for £60,000. And in the same boat, Tyrese Sinclair also left to go to Bristol City for £71,000. So just actually bringing in some transfer fees for players that just, as you can see, were just not going to make it here. And it appears that he's not been brilliant for Bristol Rovers either. I hope I haven't said Bristol City at any point. If I have, then sorry. It's Bristol Rovers for both of them. But the biggest sale of all was Adam Miles. This might look mental to you. And the simple fact of the matter is, Adam Miles never really convinced me when he joined us, despite his attributes. He just never seemed to perform particularly well. Maybe we were playing him, not getting the best out of him. Maybe it was the consistency. I don't know. Point is, he then started doing the same crap that Eddie Lovett did, where they say they're not good enough for your team, and then you're unable to convince them that they are good enough for your team, which doesn't make any sense because they're playing matches. But for whatever reason, basically, despite them playing, if they don't play every single minute despite tiredness or whatever, they just complain and say they're not good enough, and then you aren't able to convince them that they are good enough, so then they say they want to leave. Really stupid, but we had a bit of a stroke of genius where Ross County came in and we were able to sell him to them for £1 million. We got him for free, 2 years later, ship him on for £1 million. I can't really complain there. And the thing is, he'd played 18 games for us this season before this even happened, so this is what I mean. It was just very strange. He's like, no, I'm not playing enough. I'm like, mate, you're playing basically every match that you're fit or not completely knackered for. And he's like, I'm just not playing enough, bruv. So yeah, he went for £1 million. It's a shame, but it had to happen, I'd say. And annoyingly, the moment that happened, a lot of injuries to our midfielders. Typical, isn't it? Connor Coventry was out for most of the season. Needs must. So that is the conclusions of the business that we've done so far this season. I say so far, we won't be doing any more business until January now. Let's get cracking with the league stuff. Because I can hear, sat there thinking, finally, they're going to start to take control of these things. No. So, as you can see, started off with a good win in the President's Cup and actually had a brilliant start to the year, like genuinely fantastic. Thrashing teams like Skamrock Rovers away, then Waterford away, beating St Pat's at home, Sligo Rovers 5-1. Won our first 5 league games of the season in a row. Or was that even 6? It might have been 6. No, it was 5, I think, in there. Topping off with that 5-0 victory away at Drogheda with Tawanda grabbing himself 3 goals in that match. He's just flying out the traps there. Draw at Shelbourne. We got a red card in this one, which kind of sucked. But then a 6-1 trashing of Derry City, where Cloud Frey scored 4 times in this one. You could see that we were really starting to fly. Dropping some points here, but it doesn't matter because we got back-to-back wins again with Waterford and Bohemian falling to us. Again, you can see Sharif hat-trick in that game, Brace in that game. There was a tactical tweak, which we'll talk about later, and I think that's the reason he's done so well this year. Then a 2-2 draw there. And then we had a 7-1 victory against Cork City in the EA Sports Cup. It was flying. 1-1 draw against Dundalk, but then we came back with Sligo and a 4-2 victory this time. Another brace for Michael Sharif. Standard sort of stuff, really. Drogheda there in the Cup, continuing to progress, even though we weren't really trying to. 5-1 against them the following week with another brace for Claude Frey, 2 more for Tom Howcroft in there as well. Then a draw against Bowes, and then a 3-0 against Shelbourne. Brooks Lennon in there, Connor Coventry and Sharif. Then we finally did get our first defeat of the season. Disappointing, because it wasn't really one of those games that I think we deserved to lose, but there you go, a 2-0 defeat. But that was our first defeat of the season, and we were, I think, at this point, 8 points clear at the top of the league, looking very good, and knowing that if we could get a nice cushion going into those European matches, it would make all the difference, because we knew we had qualifiers coming up. But then after that, got ourselves back on it. 1-0 victory away at Skamrock Rovers, brilliant there. A 5-1 victory against St Pat's with loads more goals going in. You can see there's a real uptick in the number of goals we're scoring as well this season. We really were starting to hammer teams from time to time, which is really, really useful. Then Waterford, suddenly it's 4 straight wins again. This was a away victory at Dundalk with 2 goals in this one from Frey and Esteban. Then, 1-1 draw against Sligo Rovers. Certainly not the end of the world. A 5-1 hammering of Bohemians, who, more on them in a bit, because they've had one of the worst seasons I've ever seen. Based on expectations, I suppose I should stress. But then, an annoying 1-1 draw against Drogheda with an 87th minute equaliser, as we then lost 3-2 away at Shelbourne with a hat-trick from Emmanuel Osadebe in there too. We did get a late one back, but it wasn't enough, and worrying times. Through in the next round of the Cup as it goes, but then a draw against Skamrock Rovers with Eddie Lovett scoring our goal. You can see there's a lot of wins in here, but you notice it's a lot of cup matches. And again, another cup match here against Salt Hill, a 4-1 victory there. And then another cup match here against Galway in the EA Sports Cup. We won that. We weren't even trying to win them, we just kept winning. And then again, it was the quarter-final of the Irish Cup. Another goal in the 92nd minute, this time from Patrice Remy. Then it was the EA Sports Cup final. Emmett Doran's brace gave us the win and the second League Cup of the save. So it was nice to win some silverware at this point. But this entire period, lots of good results, you might notice. Not in the league though. Defeat there, draw there, come back after all that, another draw there against some Pats, then finally able to get ourselves a win in the league with Patrice Remy and Emmett Doran getting us the goals. Very, very important there. And we were able to get a little bit more of a run together at this point. Suddenly, the goals just started flying in. A 5-0 thumping of Waterford, followed by another 6-1 trashing of Derry City. But then it started to sort of tickle away a little bit. But we then entered probably the toughest period of fixture congestion I've ever seen on Football Manager, and I've managed in South Africa. So just to clarify what's going on here, this Dundalk game, which we did manage to win, was on the Monday. 2 days later, on the Wednesday night, we then actually had to go away to Sligo Rovers, and we managed to win 5-2. 2 days after the first game, with quite a lot of rotation, as you can imagine, but it very nearly got thrown away as we were 2 goals up, threw it away to go 2-2, and then scored 3 goals in the last 10 minutes to wrap it up. Then, 2 days later again, here we go again on the Friday this time. Managed to somehow get a 4-0 victory away at Derry City with an Emmett Doran hat-trick and a Patrice Remy goal in there as well. 2 days later, we had Waterford in the cup final at the end of the week. So just the 4 matches in a single week with a 1-day rest in between each one of them. But we managed to win all 4 of them incredibly. And I don't know how we did that, because at times that we were having to play, every single player in the squad basically played minutes across this period. And some of them played when they were like half dead because there was simply no ability to rotate. Because even if you rotated a player out for 1 match to bring them back in for the one that was 2 matches away, they were still tired from the first one because there still wasn't a big enough break. Mental. But yeah, a 5-0 victory in the Irish Cup final was huge because it stopped Waterford from qualifying for Europe, and we did not want them being in Europe whilst being in the second tier potentially. We've had that problem before, didn't need it again. But luckily, despite nearly ballsing it up, we did in fact manage to win the league on the final day, yet again, with a 4-0 trashing away at Derry City. I'll explain more when you actually see the league table. So shame I can't show you both at the same time like this. Then obviously did go win the Irish Champions Cup by beating Glentoran this time to complete an absolutely ridiculous season and have won every single domestic trophy in the same year. We won the President's Cup, the Irish Champions Cup, which I suppose is domestic. We won the League Cup, the FAI Cup, and the League all in the same year. 5 domestic trophies. I don't think I ever did that even with Tromsø, maybe because there wasn't that many domestic trophies. And I don't think we'll ever do this again, probably. But what a season from the guys that is. Now, let's take a little look at the league so we can tell you about this. So as you'll see, in the end, we actually did win it with 80 points. But Skamrock Rovers, 78 points on the board. They overperformed immensely this year. I think they, in the end, ended up finishing with 18 points more than they should have done, which is nutty. They were still comfortably better than anybody else, but really, they should have been down here with some Pats and Dundalk. They just kept winning games by the finest of margins and doing the job, kept the pressure on us all the way home. But literally, come down to the last game of the season, where the simple fact was, as a result of our situation, we just needed to draw against Derry and hope that Skamrock didn't beat Sligo Rovers. Luckily, we got a 4-0 trashing of Derry, and that was enough. We only lost 2 games this season and still only won the title by 2 points. One of these days, I'm praying for a year where we just win the title and it's nice and easy and we don't have to do too much talking about it. But it's just been so tense. For the past 3 seasons, we've had to come from 14 points behind one year, win it on the final day on goal difference the next year, get 12 more points than last year this year, and set records for goals scored and whatnot, and still only win it by 2 points on the final day. Oh, what I'd give for a boring title race, eh? But by God me, it's fun to watch. You'll notice as well, Michael Sharif, 22 goals in the top flight, which is actually a record from what we were able to work out. So that's fantastic. He's had a brilliant year. You'll notice though, Bohemians, bottom of the league, relegated, 5 wins all season, 6th, which is weird to me that they were even ranked that low, and I suspect that at the start of the year they were actually expected to be higher than that, but that's where they ended up finishing bottom with only 5 wins. We figured they were going to do what Dundalk did last year, where they started off shockingly, then pulled their way back into things. They did not. They just never really recovered, as it goes. Waterford did stay up in the end, beating Galway in the playoff, but we couldn't have afforded to have Waterford in the European leagues next year instead of Dundalk. That was not good for us. But you look at the gap starting to emerge here. As much as Derry City are team the same number of points as Dundalk, look at the goal difference between the two. These 3 clearly are the best sides other than us in this league. But now, what I think you're probably most excited to talk about, European fixtures, because we were in the knockouts of the Europa League when we last spoke, and we've obviously done all sorts since then. So let's talk about Europe. First leg at home, 1-0 to us. Beat Basel, played brilliantly. Lewis Hayes, 87th minute goal, brilliant for us, giving us a lead to take to Switzerland. I was ecstatic. Unfortunately, it was not to be, as Basel beat us 3-1 in Switzerland. Stupidly disappointing when you actually look at the stats for this match. How on earth we lost this 3-1, I don't know. It was a really poor start to the match, unfortunately. Marlage gave him a goal in the first half. We had to push a bit more in the second half, create some great chances, but then, he scored again, and Zinkernagel scored, and then incredibly, Lewis Hayes scored in this 87th minute in back-to-back matches, but it wasn't enough, and we went out of the Europa League 3-2. I think on the balance of both ties, we were probably the better side, and that really gave me confidence, but we could have gone one step further. How good would that have been? But still, lovely to see. Champions League first qualifying round. We got drawn against Apoel Be'er-Sheva. I'm sorry if I've butchered the name there, an Israeli side. One of the better teams we probably could have got in the first round of qualifying, but we were able to win 3-0 in Israel, and we're sat there going, maybe that wasn't so bad after all. But we did get a 2-2 draw in the home game, so proving that they could still do a bit. 5-1 trashing in the home leg, and then, of course, a 5-0 trashing in the away leg. A 10-1 victory on aggregate was exactly what we needed to guarantee Europa Conference League group stages. That's what we wanted at that point. Just get something on the board. Everything is a bonus from here on out. But it was here where things took a real turn. We went away to Ludogorets in Bulgaria and beat them 2-1 with Tawanda and Jacob Karno's goals in the second half. We were knocked out of Europe by these guys in the Europa Conference League when they went on to the final a few years ago. And so to beat them here was superb. But it was then in the second leg when things really took a turn for the good for us, as it was a 2-2 draw at Holman Park. And it was enough to see us sneak through with, well, I'll just let the clip do the talking. I'm Lennon. Doran's never going to get on target. Is he? Oh, he scored! Treaty 3, Ludogorets 2, and it's great. Not Graham Doran, not true either. It's 4-3, Emmett Doran. And that then set up a tie against Malmö in the playoff for a place in the Champions League group stages. We went to Sweden. A Michael Sharif goal in the 7th minute and an Eddie Lovett penalty in the 87th gave us a 2-0 victory in Sweden and a chance to go into the Champions League group stages for the first time in our history, and the first Irish side to ever do that. And back at home, that is exactly what we did. A 3-2 victory over Malmö. They went up front very early in this one, but Karno's goal equalled it out. Doran's put us in front. Doran put us back into the game. They then equalised, but then Jacob Karno scored again. 5-2 on aggregate through to the Champions League group stages, and well, we celebrated quite a lot, to be fair. Unless they score 3 times in stoppage time. Yes! Come on! Treaty United become the first Irish side to ever make the Champions League group stages. Come on. Oh, this song is perfect. If only I can play We Are the Champions. Come on. That is massive. Oh, I can't wait to see that. We were then presented with, well, Champions League group stages, which means, well, £13 million straight on the dot. Chance to win games and get some more money and potentially all sorts of other stuff. More money after Christmas as well, because you get loads at the end of the season too. We basically made the big time, and it takes this club to the next level and is actually going to give us money. And that's key when you see our transfer budget for next year. Oh, baby, which we'll talk about soon. So yeah, we're probably spending it on stream right now. But anyway, our reward for getting into the Champions League group stages was Group F. In every single conceivable way, both in the fact that it actually was Group F and the teams we got drawn with. Barcelona, Juventus, and Arsenal. Not great. Juventus were the pot 3 team in this group, and it kind of played out exactly as you'd expect. We went to Juventus for the first game, lost 2-0 with Jack Grealish and Paul Kelly scoring. Yes, that is a regen that they signed from none other than Skamrock Rovers, incredibly. And then it got a bit worse, as we went to the Emirates and lost by 8-2. But we did score twice. Emmett Doran and Conor Panini scored goals in this one, but Rafael Leao, I think, netted 5 against us. He was unplayable. Like, nothing we do could go near him. It was mental how good he was, and Arsenal were just hitting every shot in. They did have like 40 shots, though. It wasn't like we got robbed here, let's face it. And it was around this period where things started to pile up, and it was really harming our league form as well, as we lost 6-0 at home against Barcelona, with a Howcroft red card in there too. I mean, and it didn't get much better in the return leg, as we also lost 6-0 to Barcelona. 6-0 home and away. Tammy Abraham's hat-trick in this one just dispatched us to death. We were never going to do anything in this group. I was hoping that we wouldn't get hammered as much as we did, but it's just how it goes, isn't it? Then we hosted Juventus and did actually manage to get a goal back in this game. We made it 2-1 at one point with Eddie Lovett eventually losing 4-1, with the Souček penalty was not a penalty. It was just a pure dive. And actually, we weren't as bad in this game as perhaps the 4-1 would suggest. We actually kept them really quiet, and they just scored their shots, but still better. And then most disappointingly of all, we lost 1-0 at home to Arsenal in the second round of matches. Esteban's red card in the 77th minute was completely meaningless. He fouled a player off the ball for no reason, and it was a red card. And unfortunately, Arsenal were then awarded a penalty in the 86th minute to deny us our first ever point in the Champions League group. I'll just show you the group so you can bask in the horrendousness of us conceding 27 goals. That was a record, by the way. From what we've heard, that is a record number of goals conceded. But, like, what are we going to do in this group, eh? We could have paid a back 10 and it wouldn't have mattered. So we just went out there to try and play our style. Also, hilarious that Juve managed to lose out despite getting 12 points on the board. Finances, 16 million in the bank. But more importantly, the transfer budget is £12.5 million with 100,000 in wage budget available. The board have just gone, you're on it, lads. And this is perfect because we've been scouting a load of young South American and African players who are 18 and under that can count as homegrown in a few years to try to bring some of these guys in over this transfer window. Now, we're really struggling at the moment because most of the players keep doing this thing where they say that we need to improve our standing in the league. We are 4-time champions in the last 5 years. We've won every single domestic trophy this year. I don't know how much more we can improve our standing within the league. And we did also suspect that maybe they were just saying the league is shit, but there's another piece of dialogue you can get that basically says that. So I don't know what that's supposed to mean. How many times in a row do we have to win the league before our standing is improved? And our rep is the same as everybody else's, so I don't know. Hopefully we'll be able to get a bit of a bump from this, but it won't come until next summer, and that's the problem. We're going to go after as many players as we can in January to try and spend this money to get them in soon, so we don't have the problem of them not being homegrown in a few years, because that has caused issues this year, and it will continue to do so until we can get the conveyor belt going. I just wanted to talk tactically about the way we're set up. So the one change we made tactically this season was the change to the advanced forward. We were starting to notice that as we were starting to dominate games more and more, having that deep lying forward wasn't really working for us anymore, and it was sort of holding back our strike force. So we just switched between standard advanced forward, and it did seem to work. I mean, it's no really any doubt in the fact that Sharif, 31 goals this season. Now, I think he actually got more in total last year, but he was playing in like the Europa Conference League a lot more and Europa group stages, so easier games for him in Europe really didn't pad his stats out. He still scored 7 in the Champions League this year, in fairness to him, but he also played, I think, less cup games, so less matches perhaps. I don't know. Point is, still a good year. 31 goals and 11 assists, so 42 goal contributions. Actually, we can just check, can't we? So last year, he had 27 goals in all competitions, so he has improved, I'd say. A few more substitute appearances this year, but still, more goals scored, which is the main thing, particularly in the league, even though his average rating doesn't really suggest it. But still, he's had a good year. I'm happy with Michael Sharif. It's good news to have him and Doran in there as well. It's kind of nuts that he's actually been downgraded like that. But obviously, Tom Howcroft has still featured a lot for us this season. Still not quite capping out, perhaps. And you can see why I maybe should have kept Adam Miles to put him in this role with the sort of inevitable tail off at some point of Tommy Howcroft. But I just didn't want to keep a player that didn't want to be here. Jacob Kano, smashing it on the right-hand side. He's kind of tailed off a little bit towards the end of the season. In fact, quite considerably he's tailed off, but still managed to bang 7 goals and 7 assists this season. There's more to come from this lad. He's got a new contract, which removes his release clause. Who's he wanted by? This should be a good indicator. Why is Ross County interested in every single one of our players? Barry Cunningham's still been smashing it at left back for us. Really good performance. Has missed a lot of games this season as well, but still managed to make a few appearances. Pereira has had to play a bit more this year. Hasn't had the best of years, to be fair. Still been solid, but not up to his normal best because that heading really does let him down. Max Johnson's played a little bit. I mean, it's actually still started 20 games, but lots of rotation's been required. It's just his dribbling that lets him down compared to Brooks Lennon. And all sorts of other players have definitely featured this year. Let me just show you the actual squad breakdown. It's just easier to see who's actually played there. So you can see Sharif, lovely stuff. Emmett Doran has actually just created a lot of chances. That's the thing. He's only just performing above his XG, but the amount that he's been able to create in such a small period of time is really encouraging news. Tawanda, brilliant in there too. Cloud Frey, superb. Patrice Remy, although admittedly, most of that is penalties. He's had 10 of them. Jacob Kano, pretty much bang on, maybe a bit better. Tafiki's out on loan. Nathan Daly's out on loan. Some of these guys can come back and be homegrown next year as well. Howcroft's done fine. Connor Coventry's done okay when he's actually been able to play, but he was out for 4 months with a torn Achilles tendon, I think it was, which is not ideal. So, other Irish teams' performances in Europe. In fact, the only side we had in the first round was Bohemian, who, of course, got relegated from the top flight this year. So, GG, guys. But they did at least manage to get us back-to-back wins there to gain some coefficient over an Andorran side, which saw them progress to the next round, but where they were knocked out by Bodø. I mean, are we really surprised that they were knocked out by Bodø? But they did at least get a draw in one of the matches, so that's good, because it still means coefficient points. Dundalk did manage to knock out Uzpest of Hungary, which was a good win for them. And lastly, St. Pat's were beaten by Apoel of Cyprus, 2-1 and 2-0, so no points for them. And then Dundalk were pretty unceremoniously dumped out of the Europa Conference League by Lokomotiv Moscow, 6-3 on aggregate in the end. And again, no real points for offer there. And of course, with us only making the group stage of the Champions League, meant that our points pretty much ended there and then as well. Hence why you could argue that maybe it's been a bit of a disappointing season. 3.875 this year, which is actually the lowest we've had since we've been regularly doing well in Europe. But that's one of the trade-offs, where if you go to the Champions League group stages and are unable to get wins, which obviously we weren't going to win any of those matches, you then sacrifice a bit of those coefficient points. But I feel like it was worth it for the reputation and the money that came along with it, which we can use. Sometimes you have to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and this feels like one of those years that's going to haunt us for about 5 or 6 years potentially. But by the time that comes round, hopefully we can start knocking it off. We can have another good year to go with it. So where do we sit for next year? That is the big question. Currently, we're overtaking Cyprus, Sweden, Hungary, And I think that's it at the moment, but it'll be another 3 places gained, bringing us up to, what, 26, 25, 24th place, which still isn't perfect, but it is starting to allow us to close the gap on these sort of sides for a little bit. But the problem's going to come when we lose that 6.8 season. That's going to be a really tough one to replace in the meantime. But we can still do a good job, I think. So 24th place at the moment doesn't gain us anything new specifically as far as I'm aware, because, yeah, the next big change doesn't come until, well, 17th, but really 15th is the next big stand. And that's going to take us a while to get there. And we know that. So we're sort of settling in now, trying to lay the groundwork to catch up those ground. Because, put it this way, we're still right there with Norway. And that's where Norway starts. So 7 years into this save, we've just about got up to the starting point of the last time we did one of these. But that's part of the fun. We're laying the groundwork. We're going to get this going. And as for the Irish national team themselves, they're actually managed by Ralph Hasenhüttl. He replaced Stephen Kenny, who just resigned randomly. And as for the squad itself, I mean, that's top players, but the squad itself hasn't really changed a lot. The only regen that's relevant again in the squad is the guy I showed you before, Sean Kennedy, who is now at Crystal Palace. They managed to sign him permanently. What a signing he is. And they've actually got one of the other young stars, Teo Adaramola, who of course is a real player, came through at Dundee as it goes, but yeah, still no real regens breaking into that squad. And you'll notice again that not a single player is domestic, which again is not a surprise, obviously. However, during our last couple of games of the season, who was it we played? Well, we played against Arsenal. The Ireland national team manager was there to watch 3 of our players. So there is the potential that over the winter period, we might actually get some of our players getting into the Irish national team squad. Maybe. It was Barry Cunningham, Emmett Doran, and there was one other player who he was after looking at. So if they did get into the squad, that would be a big statement about the sort of players we're starting to produce. And that would make me very, very happy to start getting some players in the Irish national team squad. Very, very happy indeed, actually. Not that it's the point of the save, but I just want that, you know? We did also get offered the job of the Iron national team boss as well, before they went to Hasenhüttl, but obviously we turned it down because it's not point of the save. But we never got offered the Norway job at any point on the last save, so that was nice to have it happen. Maybe it will come back to us one day, and maybe we will consider it at some point, but it certainly won't be within the next 15, 20 years, I don't think. So that right there is kind of the situation. I'm just going to show you Regan Booty as we sort of tail off here. 45 appearances for the club again this season. 3 goals, 6 assists. He's just, despite this, he's just so good and so consistent. At 29 years old, he's still got 2 years left on his contract. He's still club captain. And what an absolute don he has been. I wonder how best 11's looking, actually. Not something we've really paid that much attention to so far, but you can see that Regan Booty is our record appearance holder now with 187 appearances across all competitions. Asante with 43 in there. Not bad as well. It's going to take a while, really, before any of the new lads really start breaking onto this list. You'll notice that Lewis Hayes he's only got 54, Panini at 64, and none of these guys are here at all. The only sort of active players even on this list right now is Booty, and he's still going. I could easily see him making 250 appearances for Treaty United, and it will get overtaken one day, but he has definitely been exactly as legendary in the early part of this save as we were hoping he would be. And on the topic of players here, Kyle Dempsey is back, but as a coach. He was released last year, and then randomly, my assistant hired him as an under-19 coach, and he's not even that bad. So Kyle Dempsey's back at the club as well. We're getting the band back together. So, with the money we've got, and there's a lot of it, and I'll just give you a little rundown of some of the players. I mean, look at this. Look at this. 1919. Look at some of the players that we've been scouting here. Now, some of these obviously are well out of our price range, but there's also an awful lot of interesting South American talent in here that we're very looking forward to going after. For example, it's Pablo Escobar. I'll just kind of leave you with that. These are the kind of quality of players that we're hoping to try and get. It's going to be tough, but we're going to give it our best shot. So if you have enjoyed this, and I hope you have, drop a like. That'd be lovely. Obviously, I'm streaming on Twitch right now, and then later today as well with the showdown. We're going to be trying to spend some of this money. How difficult that's going to be, it's going to be very difficult. I'd be very surprised if we're actually able to sign many of these guys, but we're going to give it a bloody good go at the very least. So, I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much for watching. Hold your gun, capybara, bye-bye.